Welcome to the Dr. Dispatch tutorials. Today we're going to go over integrating QuickBooks and Dr. Dispatch for a simple trucking company. By this I mean basically just moving the invoice from Dr. Dispatch to QuickBooks so you can track your income and pay your bills. You need to have Dr. Dispatch installed. As I have up here, you need to have your QuickBooks installed. We don't use online yet, so that's not supported. It's got to be one of the Pro desktop or advanced versions of QuickBooks, and get both of those installed. And the SDK, which was in our first video, we have that on our website. You should have already watched that short 3-minute video and have your software developers kit installed, a small program that's a talks between Dr. Dispatch and QuickBooks, if you will. Okay, once all this is going and ready, go to System Setup in Dr. Dispatch. You're going to want to go to the QuickBooks Setup tab, and you're going to want to, if it's not already, turn this on. This is an optional purchase. You do need to have the license from us for this product to be, if it's grayed out and you can't check it, that means you don't have a license for it. You need to contact sales. Engage it with the check mark. This is an option. Some people like this, some don't. When you check this, Dr. Dispatch is allowed to modify customers and vendors or carriers in QuickBooks. Now, some people have had QuickBooks for many years and don't want other software touching address and sensitive information, and that's fine. You would just uncheck that, and what it would do is when it puts one in, when we put in a new customer or vendor, we'll put in the address and the stuff that one time, but we'll never modify it again. If you want to modify it, meaning each time an invoice or bill is sent, it will check and re-update all the info on the address, 1099 stuff, or the federal ID, I'm sorry, stuff like that. Allow this to happen. Now, you will need to restart Dr. Dispatch for this physically to work, but to go on with the next step, we're going to just leave it open. Once you have this going, checks where you want them. Now, Canadian, don't want to forget about the Canadians. We have a version for them, you guys, and I'll go over that in yet another separate video. There's just a few minor differences that you have to do if you are a Canadian customer. Setup now. This is the actual setup of the product. We're going to go with trucking only today. You want to have your company file open, and we're going to get into network paths later. A little different, more than one person accessing your QuickBooks account. A little different to get everything stored and whatnot, but we'll get into that later. Open your file and simply use this button. Do make sure you have your proper, if you have Enterprise or whatever, Pro, whatever year. I'm using 2010, 5 years old now. Still works just fine. Use currently open file. This is going to set the path we store here to whatever the path is to your QuickBooks file. Now, QuickBooks is going to ask permission for the setup program to access their company file, and you're going to want to say yes, even if it's not running, and continue, and yes, we don't have a certificate, no. Yes, done. Keep moving forward with it. What you've done here is you've done a successful test of the communication between the two pieces of software, and you've actually retrieved the proper path to your open company file. And from there, you just simply go to the Manage Accounts tab, make sure you're on trucking, and we're going to be using line items to connect our invoicing system to theirs. Their rules, we don't go with accounts, we go with line items, and I'll explain what that is in just a minute. So you want to make sure you have a check mark at least in here. QuickBooks side. I've already got the item list open here, as well as the chart of accounts. Another little helpful hint here under the View menu, Open Window List, keep a check on that. And what happens is when you turn that off, you don't have control over all of these screens that are stacked one on top of another. It's kind of a mess. If you'll go with View, Open Window List, you just click what you want and you're on it. Easy to find, easy to use. So the item list is going to be a list of items. An item is a word, a description or a word that links to an account. And in this case, it's an income account. Now, I've got some that are already in use, and you can't really delete them, so I've got them invisible. So I'm going to try to make some new ones here. Right-click and New. In the trucking and transportation business, we sell a service. That's pretty much the case on what you're selling here. Give it a description. Truck, freight, TRK freight. In case you ever have brokerage stuff in here, it's good to be descriptive. After you get a name, the next thing you got to have is an income account. Gross trucking income. We'll go over here and look at the income or the chart of accounts, and you can look over here and see that it's default going to give you a gross trucking income account. Now I've added a fuel surcharge sub account under there for use. You don't have to do this, and I advise you keep your income accounts to a minimum so it's easy to control. And if you do add more income accounts, try to make them sub accounts. Notice how fuel surcharge is staggered over or indexed over. That's because it is a sub account. You just check that box when you make an account and then sub account it into your account file there, and then you'll have one main account which will grab everything underneath it. So we've already had gross trucking income was here. So all we're going to do is make a new item, give it truck freight as a name, pick gross trucking income. That's all. Hit OK. Simple. And then that'll give us an item in our item list. Now I'm going to add another one. A lot of people like to keep their fuel surcharge separate, and we can do that. I'm just going to call it FSC, fuel surcharge. Now I did make an income account for this. Normally, really, there's no reason to line item out unloading and drops and all this stuff into separate income accounts. It seems like a good idea in the beginning, but it causes a lot of labor later. Now you're welcome to do that. That's up to each individual, but you need a line item for fuel. Put it to its own income account. It could have just as easily been into the same account, but I'm going to break it into another one and hit OK. So I have two line items: truck freight to do my line haul with, and a fuel surcharge to break that out. Go back over to Dr. Dispatch to the setup program, and at this time we can go ahead and I'm going to leave payroll off. I want to just put do not send. There again, we'll go over this in a future video by itself in its own video. Check do not send payroll over. Hit the refresh button at this point. It should take just a second. It should start blinking these things out and reading what's in QuickBooks and give you the choices you need to fill it in. Now this is the line item I had in here before. It was TRK freight, and it won't work, and I know that because when I drop my list down, what's here does not match what's in QuickBooks here. They have to be in there twice for you can be sure it's going to work. So I'm going to select truck freight, drop my list down. You'll see it two times. That gives you a confirmation that you got a proper working line item stored called, in this case, truck freight. Now I'm just going to go ahead and come on down here and do the same thing for fuel and get the FSC one we made. Now I'm going to copy this, Control C or right click copy, and sorry I got the wrong one there. Let's get the fuel surcharge in here in this next one. And the rest of these need something in here, so I'm just going to paste these in with the mouse. Detention, surcharge, all that. And in case in the future you ever use it, there's got to be a line item here on where to put it into an income account or it'll give you an error. We're going to leave factoring alone for a different video in the future, and the same thing for taking an advance from the customer will also be another video. More advanced usage. So we've refreshed, we've read from the list, selected line items to suit us on each line, every one of them. Simply hit Save Changes. Proceed on to the Classes section. Now, most people don't use classes. I'm going to turn it off for simplicity. Classes, there again, go to QuickBooks under your list. If it's on, you'll see the list. And the class list is nothing but a list of words that you can tag on an invoice. For example, inbound or outbound loads, or reefer or van, or this or that, or owner-operator versus company trucks. They're just words, but you can take them and put them on to an invoice, and then you can do sorting and grouping that way, and it makes it kind of handy. There again, for now, we're just going to leave it off on classes. Go on over to terms, the final step. We're on trucking. We want to read the terms from QuickBooks. This is what QuickBooks has. We're going to move those terms to Dr. Dispatch, which is not necessary. And then you got to make sure you got some default terms here to use. Now this brokerage we're not doing today, so we're going to ignore it. So your AR terms, trucking and brokerage, is net 30. Why net 30? It's reasonable. Nobody's probably going to pay you in less than 30 days. Plus, when you do your reports, receivables, AR your aging detail, you want 0 to 30 or 1 to 30 to be your current. If you put 15 days as your net you're going to get 1 to 15, 16 to 30, and it's going to really make your AR kind of hard to use. So I would go with 30 days net, and of course you can change that however you want. I'm moving these over to Dr. Dispatch. We do have a way to, inside of the program, to select a certain term, if you will, for certain customers. Maybe there are some that pay you direct or pay you upon delivery, and you can go to any of our customers, select it, go to the financial tab, and somewhere here, there it is, sorry, on the billing address tab, there's a place to grab if you want to do something like net 15, and that'll overwrite the default. It's not at all needed. You do not have to have terms on a customer. I suggest you don't, but it's there if you want to use it. So we've moved over that. We've got a save here, and essentially we're done. Let's recap. Trucking or brokerage, in this case trucking, make sure you have your company file selected and open in QuickBooks behind you there. Make sure you have the right version of QuickBooks selected, and just hit your use currently open file button to get your connection process going. Go to the manage accounts, trucking or brokerage, refresh, and we'll do a refresh again here. It already should save everything I've stored in it. There again, is it valid? Yep, I've got it stored in Dr. Dispatch on the top. I have a matching entry in QuickBooks below. That means it's going to work on all of them. There again, I saved it each time. On or off with classes, whatever you're doing. And finally do your terms. Save it one final time and hit finish, and we're done and ready to test this now. Provided I've got an invoice over here to use in truck invoicing. Let's try one of these. We'll try 235 here. I'm going to do a preview on the invoice so we can see it. There's the invoice. Should end up 235. We printed it just now or emailed it. We actually got it to our customer. Now we can export it to QuickBooks, and you can wait and do this and close this and come back to this export batch anytime you want. Do it once a day, once a week, every few minutes, whatever suits you. We're going to go ahead and get this on over there. We got one record to go. I'm going to hit the export to QuickBooks button, and yes, I'm sure these will turn green when they're ready. Then I'll get a recap report in the end. That went successfully. We'll just take a quick peek at the reports. This is a simple little report, shows the total and your invoices that went. Pretty simple stuff. Print it, do whatever you're going to want. Yes, it printed correctly, and we're done invoicing for the day. That customer that was on that invoice, if it wasn't in QuickBooks, it got added 100%. Then the invoice is added under the customer. Let's take a look. Ozark Jeep, I'll go to my customer list. Ozark Jeep, there it is. And, all this gets entered. Customer information exactly the way you have it in Dr. Dispatch. Now make sure you have your invoice or your address information in there correctly so it comes over right. And then over on this customer I have several invoices, and 235 is the one we just did. Today's date 3/9/15. I can double click this invoice, and there's the truck freight flat charge $2,500. I got an unload for 50, and then we list out every stop on the load. If you got pick dates, pieces, weight, bill lading, all that's on here, so your accounting people don't have to refer back and forth to the Dr. Dispatch in order to get PO numbers and transportation information. It's all right here on one page. In a nutshell, that's all there is to it. Really simple stuff, and we'll be going over more advanced stuff, advances, factoring, and stuff like that in the next video. Thanks for coming.